It was October 26, 2024, when Amanda Gallagher would take her last breath in a horrifying skydiving tragedy. In case you're wondering, it wasn't a parachute malfunction, a terrifying gust of wind, or even a bad landing. She had successfully exited the plane and was actually safely on the ground. The Federal Aviation Administration and National Transportation Safety Board are investigating her death. So, what happened to Amanda Gallagher? Amanda was a Kansas photographer who traveled up in planes to take pictures of skydivers and then came back down to the ground to get more footage of them as they landed. But on that day, for reasons no one truly understands, Amanda moved in front of the wing of the plane. She then took a step backward as she swung her camera toward the sky and, in a horrifying nightmare, got sucked into the propeller of the plane as it still ran. Let's go from bad to worse as we look at 2024's worst skydiving disasters. As always, viewer discretion is advised. We start with Newman, a 25-year-old man who was in love with the freedom of the sky. Far above the ground, he loved the thrill of soaring through the sky and enjoyed this sport with his father, Brett, who boasted about 30 years of experience. Liam was born in Taupo, but his family moved to Australia in 2000. One thing didn't change about his father, though, and that was his love for skydiving. And this formed some of the earliest memories for Liam. He would sometimes watch his father land from a jump from the sidelines. Liam was too young to tag along for any jump at that time, but this didn't stop him and his father from trying to simulate one. They would pretend to tandem skydive from the couch in their living room, and at this point his mother knew that one of her children was undoubtedly going to follow in her husband's footsteps. Tandem skydiving is when two people jump out of the plane together and remain strapped to each other throughout the entire jump. Tandem skydiving is a good option for beginners, as it allows people without a license to experience skydiving while strapped to a skilled instructor. As a newbie, you will be strapped to a licensed and skilled skydiver from the jump to the landing. When Liam was 5 years old, his father Brett acquired special permission to bring his son along on one of his tandem skydives. And this marked the first of many skydives the father and son duo was going to embark on. Brett was a tandem skydiver instructor, and this only fueled Liam's interest in skydiving. It was everywhere he looked as a child. His mom didn't like this and tried to dissuade her son from the sport, as she couldn't bear knowing that two of the most important people to her were in love with the skies. But there was little she could do to change Liam's mind as he followed in his father's footsteps. Liam worked hard to get his license to fly solo. He was trained by the best instructors and also worked at his father's skydiving repair company. His hard work finally paid off, as in 2022 he got his license to fly solo, and just a year after that he got a job as a skydiving instructor at the iFly Brisbane Indoor Skydiving Center. Brett had garnered about 15,000 jumps under his belt, and Liam was on his way to surpassing that number. In just 2 years, he had completed over 600 jumps and wasn't showing any signs of slowing down. However, on August 27, 2024, things didn't go exactly as planned. Liam was partaking in a 5-day skills camp at Funny Farm alongside hundreds of skilled skydivers. The outdoor event was in Tarawera, a rural locality in Queensland, Australia. The day was Tuesday, and Liam was very excited to make the dive. It was a family ritual for him and his father to have a cup of coffee right before a jump and talk about the day. The same happened that morning, and Liam was pretty giddy about the jump. He discussed with his dad how much he still wanted to improve his skydiving skills. Everything was going fine, and when it was a couple minutes past 8 a.m., he and 4 others jumped from the plane, ready to take on the skies together. His father, Brett, and another group were just right behind him as he made this jump. The dive down was perfect, and it was all smooth. He turned his parachute midway in preparation for his landing, and it worked perfectly. However, during the remaining 20 to 30 feet distance, Liam miscalculated while preparing for landing. He corrected his approach and, in the process, miscalculated a turn. He turned to his left to try to salvage his turn, but he slammed his body really hard on the ground. This was shocking to Brett, who was descending just right behind Liam. He had seen a lot of accidents in his life of skydiving, but the last thing he expected that morning was to see his son crash right beneath him. He rushed to Liam's aid and stayed right by his side till the first aid arrived. Liam's injuries were too serious to be patched up by the emergency services. Emergency responders arranged for him to be flown to a hospital by helicopter. Due to the rural location, the helicopter took time to arrive, adding to the difficulty of getting Liam immediate medical attention. It took a while before the helicopter showed up, and after about 2 hours, Liam passed away from his injuries at around 10 a.m. Next up is Terry Gardner. Terry Gardner was no greenhorn when it came to skydiving. At the age of 73, he had accumulated several thousand jumps under his belt, and his age wasn't hindering him from getting lost in the alluring hug of the sky. Just in August 2022, he received an award certificate of achievement for completing his 7,000th jump. Living his life to the fullest, he organized jumps and led them. You would think his age would get in the way, but Terry wasn't your regular grandpa. He was so skilled at what he did that he not only taught people how to skydive, but made them fall in love with the sky. On Wednesday, January 31st, Terry and 3 other experienced skydivers decided to complete a bunch of jumps at Eloy, which is about 15 miles from where Terry lived. At around noon that day, they had completed 2 jumps and were just about to begin their 3rd jump. However, they decided to switch things up for this jump and try out a formation jump. Just like the name suggests, it is a kind of skydiving maneuver in which multiple skydivers jump together in a certain kind of formation and usually attach themselves to one another by grabbing each other's limbs. This formation jump was about 14,000 feet high. Formation jumping is a complex maneuver requiring skydivers to coordinate in mid-air, demanding high skill and precision. They jumped out of the plane and began to drift towards each other to begin the formation. However, just before the formation was complete, Terry deployed his parachute for an easy maneuver, but his main parachute didn't fully deploy to slow his descent. During skydiving, experts and newbies alike make use of 2 parachutes, the main one and a reserve parachute. The reserve parachute is deployed when you make a mistake during the flight, or perhaps you are caught in turbulence, or you collide with something in the air, or in the extreme circumstance of your main parachute failing to work properly. So, in this case, when Terry's main parachute failed to deploy fully, his reserve parachute was the next option. But his reserve parachute didn't deploy as well. Because both of his parachutes failed to deploy, Terry couldn't join his group in formation and fell quickly toward the ground under the influence of gravity. As Terry crashed down, members of his group couldn't help but watch as they were not close enough to help. The hard impact prompted his group to call the fire department for emergency assistance, but due to the severity of his injuries, Terry had to be rushed to Casa Grande Banner Hospital. Unfortunately, Terry succumbed to his injuries at the hospital. Terry lost his life doing what he loved the most. Tragically, Terry's death was the 2nd skydiving-related incident in Eloy in a short period. Just 3 weeks earlier, on January 14th, a hot air balloon crash had also resulted in multiple fatalities. The accident involved a dropline hot air balloon rides pilot and 4 passengers. Just before the balloon encountered problems, 8 skydivers had successfully jumped from the gondola. Sadly, the crash claimed the lives of the pilot and 3 passengers, while another passenger was critically injured. Someone also deeply in love with the allure of the sky was Devrey Chase. Devrey was a 28-year-old skydive instructor who loved the job very much. Skydiving wasn't just a job for Devrey, it was her calling, a passion she devoted herself to fully. Like most instructors who loved what they did, she tried to leave a piece of her love for the sport in each student she had. Her husband Freddie, whom she met in 2018, was also in love with skydiving. This was a common interest for both of them. Freddie loved documenting his skydiving journey with his over 400,000 Instagram followers, and Devrey played a huge part in this by recording his parachute jumps. In 2022, Devrey made the decision to move from Maine to California, and around the same time, she got a job as an instructor at Skydive Paris. 28-year-old Devrey continued to spread the love of the sport and was terrific at introducing others to skydiving. Everything was fine until it wasn't. On Friday, August 2, 2024, she went on a skydive like any other day. Devrey had been at it all day, taking jump after jump, sharing her love for the skies with those she trained. By the time she prepared for her last jump, the routine felt familiar and reassuring. She had landed in this field hundreds of times, guiding her canopy down toward the open grass with practiced ease. And for this last run, she was tandem skydiving with one of her students, 28-year-old Kayla Black. As they descended, the familiar sight of Skydive Paris stretched out below, one of the largest and most respected drop zones in the world. Located in Paris, California, this was a place known for its perfect conditions for skydiving, drawing people from all over. But on this day, the skies held a hidden danger. On that final descent, as she turned her canopy to line up her landing, something unusual caught her eye. It was the kind of thing seasoned skydivers know to look out for. A dust devil, one of those short-lived but dangerous whirlwinds that form in intense heat. Dust devils form when hot air near the ground rises quickly through cooler air above, creating small, intense whirlwinds that can pose serious risks to skydivers by disrupting their parachutes mid-flight. For most people, these dust devils are harmless, just spiraling columns of air, often invisible over grass. But for skydivers, they're a serious hazard, unpredictable and potentially deadly. Imagine you're high in the sky, steering your canopy with the ease of an expert. Then, out of nowhere, a hidden whirlwind forms below. You're faced with a split-second decision that could mean the difference between safety and disaster. You do not want to be caught in one while you are up in the air. She reacted instantly, guiding her canopy around it with the ease of an expert. But just as she dodged the first dust devil, another one formed, seemingly out of nowhere. This one spun up right beneath her, invisible over the grass, and caught her off guard. In a split second, Devrey's canopy was pulled into an uncontrolled spin. The power of the whirlwind twisted her parachute, and in spite of her experience, there was no way to recover. She and Kayla plummeted toward the ground. When the two hit the field near Getz Road, deputies from the Riverside County Sheriff's Department were dispatched to the scene, where they found both Devrey and Kayla suffering from severe injuries. Devrey was unconscious, but still breathing when first aid reached her. At about 2:30 p.m., emergency services arrived to transport them to the hospital. However, Devrey's injuries were extreme, and efforts were being made to save both her life and Kayla's. Devrey's husband made it to the hospital just in time to be by her side. Shortly after he arrived, Devrey was pronounced dead at Inland Valley Medical Center. 2 days later, on August 4th, Kayla passed away as well at Riverside University Health System's Medical Center, with her family by her side. In the wake of this tragedy, Kayla's family found comfort in her decision to be an organ donor. Through her selfless gift, her legacy lives on, offering hope and new beginnings to others. For Devrey and Kayla, skydiving was a passion that had carried them to the heights of exhilaration. Their lives were dedicated to this sport, and in the end, they both found peace while doing what they loved most. Skydivers are athletes who have conquered their fears and embraced the liberty of flying. Carolina Munoz Kennedy is one such person, and she saw skydiving as a treat to herself. Carolina had turned 40 just 2 days before, and she was determined to celebrate this milestone in her own fearless way, doing what she loved most. On October 29, 2024, she spent the day skydiving in Boituva, Brazil, a place renowned for its ideal conditions and breathtaking views. Jump after jump, she soared through the skies, sharing the thrill and exhilaration that had always fueled her adventurous spirit. For Carolina, who worked as both a physiotherapist and chiropractor back in Chile, skydiving wasn't just a hobby, it was an expression of her passion for life and the challenges she relished. This last jump of the day was meant to be the grand finale of her celebratory dives. Everything had gone smoothly up until this point. She'd made countless successful jumps, including several that same day, and was a well-trained skydiver familiar with both the technical demands and the emotional intensity of the sport. However, as she made her descent, things took an unexpected turn. As Carolina deployed her main parachute, something was amiss. It failed to open correctly. Suddenly, she was plummeting faster than she should have been, her speed increasing as she fought to regain control. She remained focused, her training kicking in, and she quickly made the call to switch to her reserve chute. But the reserve lines tangled almost immediately upon deployment, trapping her in a rapid, disorienting spin. Witnesses on the ground watched the horrifying scene unfold, frozen with fear as they saw her spiraling uncontrollably in the sky. From the ground, the bystanders could only hope that Carolina would find a way to break free from the spinning descent, her form becoming a small, frantic dot against the sky. In the heart-wrenching footage captured of the event, she struggled in mid-air, appearing to gain a brief moment of control. But then, her parachute changed direction, veering off course toward a nearby road. In those final moments, Carolina managed an emergency maneuver to stabilize herself. But it wasn't enough. Her body vanished behind the treetops, and then an impact was heard. Despite the violent fall, Carolina's spirit held on. She was still breathing as she lay there, unmoving, on the ground. Those nearby rushed to her, many still in shock, as they scrambled to contact emergency services. The scene was one of hushed horror as bystanders gathered around, unsure if they could do anything more than wait and hope. As paramedics arrived, they administered immediate aid to Carolina, working quickly to assess and stabilize her. She was promptly transported to a nearby hospital, but despite all efforts, her injuries were too severe. She passed away shortly after arriving at the medical center. Her death left a profound sense of loss among those who had witnessed the tragedy. Next up, we have 36-year-old Gregory Coates. Gregory had a love for both the mountains and the skies. He was a resident of a small community nestled in Colorado's mountainous landscape and was drawn to the thrill and freedom that skydiving offered. On the afternoon of October 29, 2024, Gregory set out to experience yet another adrenaline-filled dive. This time, he was joining Mile High Skydiving, based near Vance Brand Municipal Airport in Longmont, for a wingsuit jump. A wingsuit jump is a jump that is done while wearing a wingsuit, which is a specialized jumpsuit that allows skydivers to glide like birds through the air. The wingsuits are usually webbed to produce higher lift, which also extends air time as the flyer is gliding instead of just free falling. This suit helps slow descent, making it possible for jumpers to maneuver in mid-air before deploying their parachutes. Around 3:27 p.m., Gregory leaped from the aircraft high above Longmont, aiming to soar through the open air before deploying his parachute for a safe landing. However, shortly after leaving the plane, his primary parachute failed to deploy. In wingsuit flying, parachutes are essential to safely slow descent, especially as the diver approaches the ground. In wingsuit flying, even a minor malfunction can be catastrophic, since wingsuits require more precision to control descent. Realizing the malfunction, Gregory quickly assessed his options and transitioned to his reserve chute in a last attempt to stabilize and land safely. But the reserve chute also malfunctioned, leaving him in free fall. Gregory tried to maintain control as he plummeted in his wingsuit, but without a functioning parachute, the descent was impossible to arrest. Eyewitnesses on the ground near the intersections of Nelson Road and Grandview Meadows Drive could only watch in horror as they saw him spiraling downward. With no time or options left, Gregory fell hard in an open field south of Vance Brand Municipal Airport. Imagine watching from the ground, seeing a skydiver suddenly struggling in mid-air. Your heart races as you realize something's gone wrong. Witnesses nearby called 911, and emergency response teams arrived at the scene shortly afterward. Although paramedics reached him quickly, there was nothing they could do to reverse the outcome. Gregory had passed on. The Boulder County Coroner's Office was called in to confirm Coates' identity, and news of his passing spread quickly, sending waves of sadness and shock through both the local and skydiving communities. For Gregory, skydiving had been a way to break free and explore the boundaries of flight, but the day's events cast a heartbreaking shadow over his adventurous legacy. The tragic death of Gregory Coates also raised serious questions about safety protocols and equipment reliability at Mile High Skydiving, the company that operated his dive. Established near Longmont, Mile High Skydiving has provided skydiving experiences for years, but has also faced scrutiny following several accidents. In fact, Coates' passing is the fifth fatality connected to the company since 2018, sparking concern from the local community about safety standards. The fatalities include a 23-year-old man who died in a jump with Mile High in 2018, a tandem jump that claimed both an instructor and student in 2008, and a 2021 incident that resulted in the death of a 26-year-old solo jumper from Boulder. Even when safety is prioritized, always expect the unexpected. And this rings true for Jose de Alencar Lima Jr. Jose was no stranger to the skies. At 49 years old, he had spent over 2 decades pursuing the exhilarating world of skydiving. A Brazilian native who had moved to Germany, Jose was both a respected skydiving instructor and a seasoned veteran of the Brazilian Army's Parachute Infantry Brigade. His love for high adrenaline adventures had carried him through countless jumps, guiding students and friends through the thrill and mastery of skydiving. But when he returned to Brazil to visit family, he planned something a little different to mark the occasion: a speed fly attempt in the scenic yet challenging landscape of São Conrado's Pedra Bonita on November 3, 2024. Pedra Bonita's cliffs provided the perfect backdrop, and they are known for their stunning views and popularity with adventure enthusiasts. Speedflying is a sport that blends the rush of skydiving with the control of paragliding and requires precision and experience. For Jose, it was a natural progression, a way to channel his experience into something fresh and electrifying. As he prepared for his jump on that clear Sunday morning, Jose was in his element. The dense forest, rocky cliffs, and open skies made it the kind of place he loved to explore. Known for his adventurous spirit, instead of using the standard launch ramp, Jose chose a rugged trail leading directly to the cliff's edge. A calculated risk he had taken before, but one that required full attention and control. With his parachute ready, Jose began his run toward the cliff. But as he neared the edge, his foot suddenly caught on a hidden hole, causing him to stumble. His parachute, barely deployed, had no chance to fully open and stabilize him. He was launched into an uncontrolled descent almost immediately, losing precious seconds to regain balance. Witnesses watched in shock as Jose struggled, his form spiraling and plummeting down the cliffside, disappearing into the dense forest below. Chilling video footage captured that heartbreaking moment, showing the skilled instructor completely at the mercy of the steep drop. His landing, nearly 820 feet below, was rough and in a rocky, hard-to-access area, but rescuers scrambled to reach him. For hours, emergency teams scoured the cliffs and finally located Jose's body. He had sustained fatal injuries on impact. Those who knew him best would later remember Jose as someone who embraced life fully, with an adventurous soul and a relentless spirit. His tragic fall was just 1 month after another skydiving accident claimed the life of Carolina Munoz Kennedy in Brazil. Most see skydiving as a high-risk sport, but as of 2023, the fatality for skydiving was 0.27 per 100,000, and for fully trained skydivers, the average injury rate is 0.25 injuries per 1,000 jumps, or 1 in 4,000. So, what do you say? Are you ready to take on the thrill of the sky? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay bold and live brave.